We'd like to welcome Dr. Charles Thomas to speak to you this morning. Dr. Thomas is a full-time academic clinician who serves as the department chair of the Radiation Oncology program at the Knight Cancer Institute of the Oregon Health and Science University. He conducts clinical and translational research, and he is working to address barriers to participation in cancer clinical trials among minority and ethnic populations in the U.S. He is also very interested in programs like BUILD EXITO that aim to increase the pipeline of trained researchers from underrepresented minority groups into radiologic sciences and cancer medicine. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Charles Thomas. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to serve. Okay, very good. My department website is here. You can plug that into your phone. The reason I mentioned that early, we're going to talk about a number of things regarding mentorship, sponsorship, career development. Then afterwards, if you want to speak to me, or we can, have phone conversations, or if you're local, find times to have one-on-one meetings and maybe do some shadowing. That's my office phone number. This is my email. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself, remind me, and then we can set up some relationships. And then on the website, early on, you'll see a site that says mentorship/sponsorship. So I posted everything there regarding some career development opportunities. I want you to look at that. I have a strong team with me, family. One of my close colleagues is Dr. Eddie Green. He's at the Mayo Clinic, a native of Mississippi. Basically, like myself and others, is trying to find creative ways to increase the pipeline and opportunities. We have a crisis situation in this country in a number of levels. And each one of you is a vital cog. It's important that you make it through the system and that you be able to contribute to reduce healthcare disparities and really go on to careers in science and medicine. That's going to be critical. So I'm going to try to share some keys that might help you reach some of those goals. Now, I want you to think beyond just the next step. I want you to think about possibilities, not just the first step, but 2 or 3 or 4 steps beyond. Okay? And you may not be able to do this all by yourself. This is where your team is going to be helpful. And this is a slide I got from the Harvard Business Review a few years ago. It's going to be a team effort. You don't have to do it by yourself. And you need to make sure you find people that can be part of your team, that really wake up in the morning and have your best interest at heart. And that might mean you have to interview people formally and informally to see where the fit is, okay? Go ahead and look at that just for a second. He doesn't have to be African American. He can be Native American. He can be of the Hispanic Latino diaspora. He can be an Eskimo. But the big picture is the potential in his mind is to really go beyond what a 3rd or 4th grade student may be expected to learn. The whole power of the universe is in this young man. What can we do to give him some opportunities to reach his full potential? So the pipeline, and you can find out where you are here. Many of you are right around here and are about to go to grad school or medical school, or a combination of medical school, law school, or a combination of graduate school, getting an MBA and a PhD, that sort of thing. And then some friends, and even maybe yourself at times, were at risk because of things going on here. Okay, so what can we do to try to mitigate that? Well, if you just take the African American experience, if you go from the early 1600s until now, about 2/3 of the whole existence of people of my background as really being under slavery, 25% being since the emancipation, but really without any real rights, and really just over 10% of the existence has been where you've had, civil rights laws that ostensibly are supposed to mitigate gross discrimination. And so when one considers in the long picture, the fact that I'm even standing here and many of you are still here is a miracle. So there's ways to go. I like to look at this, and this is an ad I got from the Northwestern University Business School. I'll let you look at it for a second. I like to think this is Highway 101 on the Oregon coast, California coast. There's probably a traffic jam. And this person is going to make a way with his little suit on. He's going to move beyond. He's not going to wait for the traffic jam to be mitigated. And sometimes starting off, things can be somewhat daunting. So Exito, Building Exito, and related programs are to help you realize you don't have to do this alone. Sit back, look at the big picture, and try to identify some strategies that allow you to reach your goal, bring others along as you make progress, and save some energy. Okay, so preparing for medical school or graduate school, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand too many times, but I do want to have an idea. How many of you would like to be a physician as your final professional endpoint? And how many of you think you want to get a graduate degree in the sciences? And have any of you thought about both, perhaps an MD, PhD program? Okay, very good. Okay, so I'm in radiation oncology, and I deal with a lot of physicists, computer scientists, and they're all part of the team. I don't know how to write computer code myself, and I didn't take advanced math courses, and you don't have to have that. In all aspects of medicine, you need to have balance. And so now more than ever, admissions committees really do respect the balance. If you're genuinely interested in majoring in physics or biology or chemistry, that's good. But you don't need to do it to impress the application committee. It's okay to major in film studies and in English. My colleague John Hunter, the chairman of surgery at OHSU, knew he wanted to be a doctor, but he was an English major as an undergrad and then took his pre-med courses. That's helped him in the long run. Okay? So humanities is not to be looked down on as a major. Summer opportunities, that is absolutely critical. I know you all know that. Okay, so I'm speaking to the choir. There can be more than just one opportunity. So if early on in your summer opportunity, you're going to work on something, you're starting in mid-June, but it looks like right after or close to July 4th, either the mentor or the sponsors that you're working with don't genuinely seem interested or maybe preoccupied with some other personal issues, and there's a chance you could go through July and August and not really be able to exploit some of your ability to learn and gather information and perform. Always be on the lookout of maybe be able to shift, and there may be other mentors and other labs that you can work with. The summer is very, very important. It allows a way for you to observe, see how people are doing things, gives you a chance to test yourself, to see how you can commit and focus, learn information, really ask a lot of questions. Very seldom will people say, "You're bothering me, don't ask questions." In this type of culture, in medicine and science, people will appreciate you asking questions. Chance to hear about career journeys of others. And it's very important, if you're working on a project, it would be very nice if you could be a co-author of an abstract or a paper. Many of the projects you may work on this summer and previous summers, if nothing else, you can present some of that data at your college science fair. There's always going to be a science fair or a research fair at your university. If some of you are going to a university that doesn't have a science fair, you can enter the science fair at a nearby university. Okay? So, you want to look at role models, identify mentors for that summer, but also potential mentors that you're going to pick who could be helpful to you and your cause throughout your career, okay? And potential letters of recommendation, okay? So, mentors. Now, when you log on to my website, you'll see the mentors. So if you put OHSU, radiation medicine, mentorship, a link will come up. You can save that. It's densely populated. And there's another one next to it that says biomedical career opportunities. They're very important. In fact, that's the website right there. Okay. So, choosing schools, we want to find a good fit for you. It is sometimes very challenging if there are people in your school that do not appreciate the virtues, the diversity, the experiences that you and your kind bring to the table. When I go to OHSU, I'm a department chair. Just about every meeting I go to, I'm the only person that phenotypically looks like myself. So by definition, really de facto, I'm a pioneer. And I kind of knew that, okay? But there has to be some common ground, and there's ways to find and define common ground. I think location is going to be important, but you don't want to just stay where you grew up. It's nice to be able to go other places and then bring back some knowledge back home, okay, as a faculty member down the road. Having proximity to friends and being able to make new friends, extended family, support network is going to be very critical. So I talk about support network. Okay. So I'm going to, just a minute. Yeah. Personal statements are going to be very critical to graduate school, to medical school, and to other opportunities. It's going to be critical, and I actually read the personal statements. A lot of my colleagues don't. And one of the reasons I read it because I learn about other people, their culture, their values, and so forth, things that I might not normally appreciate. So make sure you're able to convince someone. There are people on these committees who actually read the personal statement and value that. So try to be clear on why you've selected a certain field, why you would want to write a thesis in a graduate topic on a certain area, okay? What motivates you? And that's something that's personal to you. What's your real motivation? And you need to ask that question to yourself. And if there's some selfish motivations, how can that be mitigated somewhat? All of us have some selfish motivations, but can it be controlled? Can it be managed? Okay? Okay, got it. Try to answer the questions that are asked of you in your application. It's okay to create a redundant theme, okay, so people can hear the same message in several ways, okay? Then ask someone else to critique, okay? And nowadays with cut and paste, absolutely do not send in an application to UCLA that has University of Washington. That's kind of rude. You need to double check, you need to work on the spell check, make sure if you're tracking changes, and make sure you save the correct copy on the PDF that you send in. But ask someone else to critique. Now, I'm writing a foreword for a textbook, and I sent in a draft Sunday to the author. She's a colleague of mine. She's a PhD in nursing. She's very good. And I've written textbooks and so forth, but I've never written a foreword. She's been very kind about it, but she sent me some suggestions last night and this morning. And so I'm going to have to revise it, and because I don't think it's what she wanted. We're going to talk about that. And so we can always learn and so forth is my point. How do I get these letters? We want letters from people that you think have your best interests at hand, can see the best picture, can see the big picture in your long-term career success, and actually can enjoy the reflected light of your success. It'd be nice if someone can write a letter and they see that you're doing well, and they can actually enjoy that reflected light. They don't mind giving you credit and having you shine. Okay? So they can come from the pre-med committee or the pre-graduate school committee and advisor, faculty who know you, research mentors and sponsors, perhaps employers who can talk about your dependability and so forth. Community and volunteer coordinators, less weight if they're from your direct family, and you should know that. Okay. Let's be direct, appropriately brief, and these are things that we're going to develop throughout our careers. Communication skills, and then it's important that you're able to project to others, that you have integrity, that you have, if you look at all of these, many of these are part of something we call emotional intelligence. Let me go back. Emotional intelligence and social intelligence. Being able to understand how other people feel and may react. And you see different levels of emotional intelligence at the political, at the presidential race right now that's being demonstrated or not being demonstrated. So these are some of the desirable personal attributes. I'll ask you to look at that. One of the things that is most important is love of learning. You know, quite frankly, when you watch the basketball finals and the soccer matches, many of those folks, they're making lots of money, but they probably play for free. Okay? You would want to be able to, it's not work if you're actually having fun. So if they're paying you money for a job and you would do it for free anyway, then you're really in a good situation. Teamwork. There's going to be a time for everyone to shine. Believe me. Okay. So there's something called team science. That's also on my website. So you'll see it. It's called labeled team science. So that means we're at a point now, especially with respect to the human genome and the sharing of data, that there's room for everyone to get some credit. There's room for there to be numerous abstracts and papers, and all of these are going to spawn different ideas and concepts. So every research concept is an iteration of a previous one. So there's going to be a room for everyone to contribute. I think it's important to find the values of the school, not just the stated values on paper. Every school has it worked out that they value diversity, that they value cultural diversity, racial diversity, ethnic diversity. So they all say it on paper. What you need is to be able to find a school, provide an environment that you're convinced has some values that are consistent with your values. Or at least you're able to see and convince yourself that they're on the road to developing some of the values that are consistent with yours. Okay? You're professionals now. You're professionals in training. My wife has a group at Roosevelt High School here that they're called the Young Professionals. And so it starts early. Cost is significant, but that's an investment, okay? That's a long-term investment, and many of us will be in some form of debt until the day we die, but that's an investment almost like a home is investment. We want to be smart with it, but it's going to be an important investment. Okay. Yeah. Mentorship. We'll talk about mentorship, but the other thing is sponsorship. I'm going to be leaving tomorrow to teach in a course I've been teaching for like the last 5 years in Europe. I'm going to take that nonstop from here to Amsterdam. So I have a lot of things I need to get done with some patients today. And I thought I might not be able to speak today. If I didn't come, my colleague, Dr. Jerry Jaboyne, was going to speak in my stead. That would have been an example of sponsorship. Jerry is very good. He's a faculty member at my department. When you look at our website, sharp. I'm going to show you some pictures of him. By sponsoring him, I'm going to say, you know what, I can't come to BUILD EXITO, but Dr. Jaboyne will come and he'll do just as good a job, if not better. So a chance to sponsor him, and if he embarrasses me, embarrasses us, that's my risk. But you need people who want to sponsor you, who you're representing the family, you're representing that laboratory, and so forth at a presentation. So sponsorship is very, very critical, along with mentorship. So in search of mentors. Okay, so where do mentors make a difference with me and others? Well, parents and loved ones can be the first set of mentors and role models. They've gotten me and others started. My parents were educators. So my dad, this is 1967, and this is at Evanston High School it's a suburb just north of Chicago where Northwestern is located. And this is 1967. I'm about 10 years old, and we're on the sideline. They have a very good football team. There's different type of teaching. The head coach is very intense. Assistant coach, I look at my dad as trying to do more instructional or teaching, but different styles. So you can write some of these things down. You want to develop, what are you looking for in a mentor? Potentially role model, preceptor, excuse me. Someone who can be a role model, someone who can be a preceptor, someone who can mentor, and perhaps they also can be a sponsor. So let's look at the relationship. Where are they in their career? Location. Some of this can be geographically in the same institution, in the same department, but I have a bunch of mentors nowadays with the internet that are long distance. Look at behaviors of the mentor. There are some behaviors you want to emulate, some you don't. What's the upside for you and what's the upside for the mentor? And it's okay to terminate or evolve some relationships. There may be some very good high school mentors for you that it may have to evolve. They may not be able to be your primary mentor as things move along, and that's okay. There may be other mentors that really, quite frankly, have outlived their usefulness. They were able to do some things very good, but either because of a number of reasons, they may not be the best person to stay in that critical role. And there could be a mentorship committee. Many of you going to graduate school are going to have thesis committees. It's very seldom that one person will be the perfect mentor, the perfect sponsor. So let's do a needs assessment. There are a lot of buildings that are being built at PSU and OHSU. And one of the things they do first is a needs assessment. What do people need? What things are being outsourced because we don't have certain resources? So we want to identify those problems, formulate a research question. I'm not going to go through all of these, but where are these in the importance? What are the skills you already bring to the table? What are your current competencies, and what's the delta? So you may already be able to be very good at computer code. You may be better at coding than a lot of people in the department that you may be doing graduate school with. So that's a strength, and then that's something that you can kind of help others on certain projects, and then you can get some things back in return. There may be other significant skills, maybe biostatistics, that you're struggling on and you need to have those gaps filled. So it's important that you take your own needs assessment and bring that to the table. What are some of the qualities of a mentor? By definition, this is going to be incomplete. I want someone who also can potentially be a visionary as well as a role model. They should bring some energy to the table, be willing to invest. That could be monetarily and with time. And we'll talk about time. If they're going to invest time, you need to be on time, and you can set the agenda with your mentor and mentee. So when you meet, you have a written agenda. It allows you to stay on task. Someone who can give legitimate feedback, constructive feedback, not feedback to the point that you're they damage your psyche. We don't need that. There are other aspects of society that kind of reinforce that some of us are second or third class. We need a mentor and sponsor who is able to give, on one hand, appropriate feedback, but build us up and give us constructive roadmaps so we can move ahead. Someone you can freely, bounce some ideas off of. This has been very important to me. Someone that helps us solve problems. Long-term career counselor, someone that challenges you. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have, especially in some school systems, is that if kids are behaving well, we may give them high grades. And they may not necessarily excel in the work or may not being taught the work. We don't want to get pimped in our educational system where you're not getting challenged. Because what happens is when you get to college and graduate school and medical school, it can be a rude awakening. So we need mentors and sponsors that you can, work with that can say, this is an area you're strong in. This is an area we need to do some more work. We don't want someone that's going to say everything is good all the time. That's not genuine, because that's going to catch up to you. Okay? So read that for a second. Responsibilities of the mentor, as well as the mentee. Now, I talk about something called listening. The mentor needs to be a good listener also. Brian Juker, the head of our cancer center at OHSU, is a very good active listener. I said the word active. You can almost tell when he's talking to you. You can see he's not waiting to get in the next comment. He's processing. He's listening to you actively, and then can give a pause and think about what he wants to say. Okay? So a mentor that's an active listener. Now, I haven't routinely done this. I'm going to start doing it for certain people, and that is developing a contract. Okay? Because one of the things I'm finding as I get older, some of my mentors have really shined. We're talking on a regular basis, we're staying aligned, and when we kind of are incongruent in some of our thought processes, we're able to get back in sync. But there's some others that don't listen. They say they're going to do things, and then when we've set up a meeting a month later, they give me excuses why they haven't done A, B, and C, or met with person D, E, and F. Okay? So we need to make sure that we have a definition of what the expectations are. Because there are some people I've failed as a mentor, and maybe we need to be honest. Maybe there are certain situations where you outgrow your coach or your mentor, and you need another one. Maybe I won't be the best person to be on this thesis committee, or if I'm on the committee, I certainly shouldn't be the lead of the committee because I may not have the expertise and the wider vision. That's okay. Okay, so you need mentors in undergraduate, medical school, graduate school. Okay, I want to go on to something else. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. Your mentor is going to help you as you begin to develop your thesis. Many of you going to graduate school will try to compete for grants at the NIH, and certainly in medical school throughout, being able to get grants. Dr. Crespo was able to get a huge grant for BUILD EXITO. That's an investment that the government made in him and his team. That's very important. You want to be able to sell your grant to the committee so that it's a win-win for everyone. Not just a win for the PI, but a win for your institution, and quite frankly, a win for whoever's investing. If it's the Gates Foundation, if it's the NIH, excuse me, if it's your local department and so forth, there should be an upside for everyone. And quite frankly, many of the grants that we're involved in involve the public in one way or another. So it's taxpayers' money. It's your money. Okay, so these are some sites. I talked about institutional research fairs. Some of you go to small community colleges. There's usually a researcher fair. If not, there'll be one nearby at another school, so you don't have to be enrolled in that school necessarily. We can work on that. If there's some work that you have and you don't have a place to present it, call me and we'll figure this out. Or you can present it through my department next year at the 2017 OHSU Research Week. And it doesn't have to be a cancer topic, although I'm a cancer doctor. I think this is a very good meeting, the ABR CMS. So if you can write that down, I'll do that. It's a very good meeting, a lot of underrepresented minority high school, graduate school talent, college and graduate school talent. I would say about 2/3 of people are in graduate school and about 1/3 are in undergrad. Again, you'll be able to see people that look like you. It's important to sell your ideas to a number of levels, not only the granting agency, but also to journals. I'm at a point in my career, and I've been at this point now for about 6 years. And it does excite me. When I was a resident at Baylor College of Medicine and Internal Medicine, I did a neurology rotation. And there was a guy, as an associate professor, he was at a point in his career that I aspired to be. Every month, he had an article coming out. He had another article being submitted and another one being revised. And there was always new data being generated. So I think that's pretty cool. You know, you're contributing, you're learning, you're always with your cadre of colleagues, collaborators, not only at your institution and others, you always have something going on. And so that's really, really exciting to always be able to, at least once a month, be able to be contributing to the literature and setting up the next project. That's like totally cool for me. Why are you here? Oftentimes because you want to be involved in research. You want to learn how to develop a hypothesis and articulate that. Develop specific games. What are some of the strategies on how you're going to conduct your research? What's the root of the gaps that currently exist? And how might your project fill those gaps? You want to be able to critically discuss and evaluate your work. So when you're evaluating summer gigs and other jobs, you want to just see, is there an opportunity or is there an expectation that you might, present every other week an update on your small component in the lab or in that research group. That's a very good exercise as opposed to having to do a presentation at the end of the summer and so forth. So if you can do regular short presentations, it doesn't really build up. If you do, you can learn with iterative learning is my point. Learning how to write. And this is something that can be a real advantage if you get in the habit of writing and writing consistently and revising your work. I'm going to show you something very quickly. Dr. Robert Wynn. Yeah, Dr. Nguyen is the Cancer Center Director at the University of Illinois in Chicago, my alma mater. And I had him come in and give a talk about 4 years ago. Anyway, it's on our website. If you go OHSU, Radiation Medicine, Robert Nguyen, W-I-N-N. And I interviewed him briefly, and he was able to articulate some of the ways he manages his time. He has several NIH, Department of Defense, and VA grants. He's married, has a family, sees patients, does research, does teaching. And up until recently, when he was at Colorado, he was the head of the admissions department and really did some novel work in the Four Corners to increase admissions to medical school at the University of Colorado. So you'll be able to look at that on your own. I was just going to show you some snippets of that. Let me go on. We can. It's not critical that we do this now. Great. Okay. Super. That's okay. So selling your science. Coming up with the idea is only the beginning. Selling it is critical. So again, work with your team, and everybody should have a role. You want to stay focused. And there are times that you're going to go off on different tangents because there are going to be new ideas that need to be explored. Some of those ideas need to be acted on immediately. Others may need to be put in the parking lot to be further developed by someone peripherally. Get an idea on who you're trying to pitch your ideas to. There's probably going to be a layperson component that you need to be aware of. So you should be able to write a lot of grants, they have a scientific summary, then they have a layperson summary. So someone from a women's sorority who's given a scholarship should be able to understand the basic aspects of your grant. Or someone from a school board, some layperson. And so that's really, really critical. You know, people who are considered experts and are on the different talk shows, they need to be able to communicate to lay people. Some of those people can be very granular and detailed when you meet them. When you meet them at a national meeting for their specialty, they're not talking like they talk on TV because they're talking to their peers. But when you talk on TV or in the radio, you need to be able to be more broader and to be able to communicate effectively. So, I'll tell you about SOCO, audiences, the purpose, objectives, constraints. So you want to plan, you want to organize, you want to control the message and the tempo. So what's the single overriding communication objective, SOCO? And you'll see this in the presidential election too. What's the single overriding communication objective, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with certain candidates and how they communicate. At the most part, at this level in big-time politics, being able to understand SOCO is important. Well, for grants, it's important to communicate that to the grant committee. Yeah, I like that. I would practice. You can practice talking in front of your class. I oftentimes have volunteered to give grand rounds, to give talks, especially when I've taken new academic positions. When I started at OHSU in the fall of 2005, I called up certain departments and I said, I'm a new faculty member, I'd like to talk about this aspect of cancer or radiation oncology. And no one's going to say, no, we don't want to be bothered. If you're willing to spend time, prepare a talk, and present, you're not asking for any money or anything, that's a good thing. So oftentimes you may want to give a presentation or volunteer to give a presentation. Not necessarily in your class, but there may be a related class that can benefit from that, okay? Grant reviewers. This is a so-called study section. Dr. Crespo and others had to have an idea of who would be on the study section or the review panel if the NIH, National Science Foundation, and others, and what study sections are looking for. Some of these are done in person in Bethesda, Maryland. Or different parts of the country. Sometimes they're done by Skype and so forth. And it's important that there'll be one person who's been assigned your grant. We need to make sure that you've empowered them to be a really good advocate for you, to be able to convince everyone else why it's compelling that we invest precious funds for your grant. When we use the word triage, that means that your grants really hasn't had a chance to be evaluated by the full committee, meaning the pre-evaluation grading has deemed that your grant is unlikely to be competitive. We don't want our grants to be triaged. We want them to be discussed by the full committee. So they have to be competitive. And some of the reasons a grant might be triaged is that maybe the topic just isn't that important, or it's not considered important by the study section. Maybe the way you've outlined your research plan is not logical. Maybe overly ambitious. This is not uncommon. Saying that I want to cure cancer in Portland in 5 years. That is a laudable goal, but there needs to be a reasonable timeline. It may be more logical to say we're going to increase the screening rate for breast cancer in a certain population 6-block area in Northeast Portland, and this is the way we're going to do it. That's something you actually can be able to prove and make a legitimate case. If it's unfocused, so overly ambitious and unfocused can be together. And this is a problem I've had. You get on a tangent and you can be accused of being unfocused. It's good to have some preliminary data. So you're always gathering data and so forth. Preliminary data is going to be critical. So, they're looking at quality, creativity. That's going to be important. Can you actually do it? It may be a great idea, but quite frankly, maybe another team someplace else needs to do it. Maybe you're not the person that can really execute that. So we got to make sure it's clear that not only is it a great idea, but I'm the person to really lead this project. And for the things that I'm not an expert on, I have the requisite teammates that can fill biostatistics, that can fill other voids that are needed. How are we going to judge whether we've executed? Meaning what endpoints are going to be measured and tracked to show that we've met our aims and objectives? And is this really feasible? If you can look at that for a second. So think of where this guy started. Started doing the traditional stuff, and someone else got a better idea. And you know what? Some of these things that we load ourselves with aren't necessary. Okay? So are a lot of the things that you put in your grant, are they really necessary? And can you work on a lighter load? But basically, there took several steps for iterative learning. This is an example of iterative learning. This is from the Harvard Business Review about 10 years ago, a nice cartoon. So make it clear that you've developed a plausible, logical, testable hypothesis. And then convince the team. It's going to be important. In that you're going to have data that others are going to be able to use. And you can expect, if you prove your specific aims, others should be able to look at your data and duplicate that experiment. We have a problem that a lot of experiments are not being able to be readily duplicated. And so it's critical that we be able to translate or transfer your information to other data sets, to other populations. Be able to sell, you're the driver. There may be other players involved, but you want to drive the agenda. So, title, background. Don't spend all this time on the grant with the background. The study section experts already know the background. So you really want to spend most of your time on the hypothesis and the specific aims. Okay, and this may take, if you look at my interview with Robert Wynn, he'll talk about that. This may take a few months. Okay, let's work this out, and we can involve our biostatistician earlier after you got your specific aims worked out. Let's not just spend all the time writing the background, okay? Hypothesis, be able to clearly state it in 1 or 2 sentences, and then write out some logical specific aims. Get your biostatistician involved early, and then the other things get filled in. Okay, it's very critical that you make it through so that you can help address some of the issues of disparities that exist in this country. Okay. We're making progress, but clearly we have a ways to go. Okay? And each one of you is a critical cog into to get to where you are now. There are a lot of people paid a lot of dues, a lot of sacrifices to be able to get you in a position to become successful. And you want to make sure that that investment was not in vain. Okay. You can read this on your own. So, I want you to think about a cog, and all these things need to work together. I'm going to show you with the next slide. Each is dependent on the other, whether it be education, research, patient care, these other aspects of communication skills, humanism, health literacy. Now, we have a concept that we have, we're going to apply radiation for patients that have a certain problem with their joints and the nerves of their hands. And the IRB, Institutional Review Board at OHSU, says, okay, everything is all set, but what they told me yesterday and the day before, is that we need to dumb down the language. Now, we think we have it at a 9th grade level, but a lot of the push, I'm hearing this from other places, is I need to write it to a 5th grade level. Okay, so being able to communicate effectively of someone who may be on a 5th or 6th grade level is going to be important. So we're constantly learning how to, really, and especially in the genomic age, to really be able to communicate effectively. That's going to be a challenge. And there's an opportunity to do that. Culture of inclusion, diversity, cultural competence. Again, from my own experience, we've only been at this for a short time over the past 400 years. My standing here is really miraculous. You need to make headway. And I don't think the building's going to come down. She's just, he's making a way out of no way. Does anybody know who this person is? Has anybody met this person? No, it's not Shel Silverstein. All right. Yes. Yes. Now, I'll repeat his name. That gentleman knows who this investigator is, but he could be anybody. And scientist comes in all shapes and forms and colors. So Dr. Fair is one of the top neuroscientists, investigators in the United States. A lot of funding, writes in the top journals, is very connected to the community. He and his wife, he's a urogynecologist, are raising funds and travel back and forth to Ethiopia. His neuroscience work is cutting edge. Damien Fair, F-A-I-R, first name Damien. You can look him up at OHSU. He's someone that you can speak to. He also has a program. Some of you who are looking for postdoctoral fellowship positions will be eligible for. My next slide shows a young lady who is graduating in 2017 from OHSU, Ann Ololuru. She's a native of Nigeria, went to high school and college. High school here in Portland and then undergrad at University of Oregon. And then she went ahead and got a master's last year at OHSU with Dr. Becker and his team in the Department of Preventive Medicine. And then will graduate from medical school next year. And she spent one of her summers a few years ago working with the team at the Harvard Medical School. And these are some of my colleagues in Boston that she spent time with. Again, being able to exploit the opportunities for your learning throughout the curriculum. So she's going to get an MD along with her MPH. And so MPH can be a very, very important degree. You want to get in an environment where people are proactively recruiting you. There aren't that many environments like that. We're trying to create that at OHSU. Our department proactively tries to identify some of the best and brightest. I'm going to be talking with some of you offline later on in the summer. We'll want you to come up, be able to present some of your research, and with Dr. Jaboyne and I and others, see what we can do to be part of helping you get from point A to point B to point C. These are some of the young talent that have come through OHSU, through our department, to give, to present some of their research. And many of these people have been getting dual degrees, both MDs and PhDs. Okay. Postgraduate, you want to maintain these relationships. Dr. Kusano is a native Eskimo from Alaska. He's there now. I really wanted to recruit him to be a part of our faculty. He's an adjunct faculty. He's one of our best and brightest. We've never worked at the same institution. I wanted him to come to OHSU for his residency training. He ended up going to the University of Washington, but that didn't stop us. We've still collaborated with Aaron, and we're still collaborating with him. And so there are some people that I've collaborated with that I'll never be at the same institution with them. That's okay. Dr. Jaboyne was going to be the person to speak in my place. We first saw him in 2008. He had him give a research seminar in 2009. I've been courting him over the years. We finally, last fall, were able to bring him on board as a physician scientist investigator. So he's here at OHSU, Jerry Jaboyne. That's him, yep. So he's someone you can write down his name. He's available. He will be willing to talk to you. Just say, Dr. Jaboyne, I'm so-and-so. Dr. Thomas spoke to our group. I was wondering if I can get a chance to speak to you and meet with you. And he may give you some screening questions and ask for your CV and resume. Jerry is trustworthy, very balanced, has a family, is able to see a big picture. The reason I put these slides here, he actually is our program leader for people with brain tumors and pediatric tumors. Dr. Fair, one of the top scientists on the planet, recognized by the White House as one of the top early career scientists, just a real dominant force. I'm going to mention Iris. I got to call her back. Iris, when I brought her here in 2007, was a faculty member at Stanford. She's still a faculty member, but last year she is the Associate Dean of Admissions at Stanford School of Medicine. And she's told me, Charles, this has been our best year last year and this year. And that's tough to be able to get the best and brightest in a hyper competitive environment. She's balanced and is able to do that. A native of Delaware, and so Iris Gibbs is one of our best. She's the Associate Dean of Admissions at Stanford. She'll be looking for you all. It's a member of our department, Simon Brown, a native of South Carolina, where up until recently the Confederate flag flew along or above the State House. As you know, he grew up in that culture, went to Brown University, so went away to college, learned some things, went back to his state school, MUSC, Medical University of South Carolina, graduated, and now has joined our department as a resident in radiation oncology, one of our best and brightest. Dr. Jaboyne again, Dr. Tanyi, and one of our physicists from Cameroon. Okay, so you see where you are in the pipeline. I'm going to find ways to mitigate, and it may turn out that you have to drop out or have dropped out temporarily to take care of a family member or to take care of some other personal issues, and then you get back in the game. That's okay. My wife just got her master's in marital and family therapy in her mid-50s just a few years ago at Lewis and Clark. That's cool. Okay, so there's no specific rigid timetable. Okay, you got to make sure you have support systems so that if you come across any of these challenges, we can mitigate that. There are different roads. We're to the end. Yeah. I'd like to acknowledge my family, very balanced and very helpful. And Dr. Green helped me prepare some of these slides a few months ago. By the way, the Mayo Clinic summer programs are outstanding. So Eddie runs that. He has a connection to some of us here at OHSU. Very good man, Eddie Green. If you contact him, he'll be responsive, trustworthy. Again, I'd ask you to look at the interview that I have with Dr. Nguyen. It will not be a waste of time. It's only about 18, 19 minutes. I'm just going to give you very salient information on mentorship, career development. Thank you very much for your time. So we're going to do questions now. Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Can I ask that you speak to me?
So I just wanted to know, in regards to the personal statements, when you say you read them, I wanted to know, from your perspective, when you're reading these personal statements, what is the most strongest, or what are the most strongest in identifying factors that really distinguish between a cliche written personal statement and one that's really, really authentic, and that when you don't finish reading it, you say, oh, I'm kind of convinced. You feel
Yeah, so one of his question is, what can help you distinguish your personal statement so doesn't sound cliche type? I think it can be important if you can give a short example. It doesn't have to be drawn out, but a short example of something, that you have overcome that you want the committee or the person assigned to read your application, your full application, that they can bring to that table. So then we're sitting around in the admissions committee, they can say, so-and-so had this particular challenge, and this is how he dealt with it. This is how he marshaled certain resources. This is how he took a step back and was able to navigate this terrain. So we need to give them a personal example of how you've been able to negotiate a challenge. Because as a scientist, as a physician, you're going to have different challenges, and they need to be able to see a glimpse of how you've been able to negotiate a challenge in life. Okay? So that can be something succinct, clear, that that person reading your statement is able to understand and bring to the admissions committee when they sit around at the table and have to advocate for the people they've been assigned their application as you move into medical school and graduate school. Very good question. Yes, ma'am.
As somebody that's interested in radiation oncology, is there a particular major or resources that I could use to learn as much as I can beforehand?
What aspects of radiation oncology? Do you want to be a physician? Do you want to be a radiation therapy technologist? Have you had a chance to think that through? Okay. Well, then why don't me and you just, where do you live? Are you nearby?
Yeah, I'm like 3 blocks away.
Yeah, why don't we just talk afterwards, and you can maybe do some shadowing with me, meet some people in the department. It's a specialty. We have a radiation medicine student interest group. So we need to talk about, I want you to be able to do some shadowing with me. We'll chat. On our website, there's a radiation, I won't do it now, there's a radiation medicine student interest go OHSU, radiation medicine student interest group, you'll see that under the education tab. And then we're going to have an open house for first and second year medical students this fall. You can talk with me beforehand. You'll be able to come to that, you and a couple of your friends. But let's set up a time where we'll chat about the specialty, and you can do some shadowing with me and my team this summer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So what have you personally struggled with on your way to becoming who you are as like a great scientist, or currently struggled with? There are times when I feel that I'm an imposter. And so there is some self-doubt. So that is something that you constantly need reassurance that that you belong. There are times that I feel invisible. And being able to deal with constant microaggressions. Many of you are experts at being able to adapt to microaggressions. And so that's really a constant challenge, and but it can be managed. So, being able to make sure you understand you do belong, you can contribute, but there are times that there's doubt, there's self-doubt, and that can be managed. But I do have, while if one were to do a Google of my name, a lot of good things come up. There's doubt at times. And so that's probably my edge. I realize that when I come back from the Netherlands on the 29th, my contract may not be renewed. I'm pretty sure it will be, but I don't take it for granted that the current position I have is set indefinitely. I always feel I have to kind of prove that I'm worthy to be at the table.